record again on Thursday, 29th. I believe I'm talking with Dr. Taylor, is it?
No, it's Thompson.
Thompson.
Raymond Thompson.
Do you have a middle name, Dr. Thompson?
Converse. Family name.
Dr. Thompson, could you tell me something of what you remember from the era of World War II?
Well, I guess high school on December the 7th, and I guess we all remember that. Pearl Harbor Day. The time I learned of it, my mother owned a theater in Frostproof, Florida, and we were at the theater, and some people, some clients, well, people that come to the show, about Pearl Harbor being bombed, and of course we didn't know where Pearl Harbor was, but finally somebody said it was in Hawaii, and that was the first recollection of the World War II. Of course, since I was a little boy, I'd been interested in all the different wars that had been going on, you know, attacking Ethiopia, and then World War II, Hitler going in Austria and then Poland. All the newsreels, and we just couldn't believe Neville Chamberlain giving up to the Germans, inviting them to go into Czechoslovakia, even though I was a young teenager. Everybody knew that was a stupid thing to do, just to encourage. But then when we became involved, well, of course we were going to become until they attacked us in December. I was in high school in a small town in Florida, and much to go into the, not much to, but I was 16 or 16. But we immediately began doing war type work. I already had a bit of experience in first aid, and through the Red Cross and the Boy Scouts. And I saw an old diary that I kept for a short period there. I was involved in 3 and 4 meetings a week, teaching different groups first aid. Usually me, along with an older fellow, 4 or 5 years older than me, knew more about it than I did. But I started teaching classes myself, and these were to the air raid warriors, the high school girls, high school boys, different adult groups, and it was a full-time job. I mean, we were doing our part. We also organized a early air raid warning service throughout Florida, and I was a senior patrol leader in the Scouts, and part of my job was to staff these air raid posts. We had direct lines to Atlanta and Tampa, and any plane we saw, we'd tell them what direction it was, what the plane was, and looking for foreign planes. We reported thousands of planes per week, but they were all ours. In the meantime, my dad was in the Civil Air Patrol, patrolling, going to war, but he got an airplane and he patrolled Tampa looking for submarines. They found a lot of submarines. But then, during the, so we were doing our share, remember the passioning and the spirit of people wanting to go. And then in my senior year, we started losing boys to the Navy. And you could go in the Navy at age 17. And I wasn't too anxious to cut off my schooling too early. But I did take an exam to get into the Navy V-12. This is a very comprehensive mental exam. And I heard from it a month or 2 later and said I'd passed, and they would call me up. They didn't call me, so I went ahead and graduated from high school in the 40s. And then I heard, so I said I'd better go started Emory in my pre-med. Not, I just want to sit at home waiting. Got up to Emory, pre-med, and they called me for my physical 2, 3, 4 weeks later. I went down to Atlanta and went through the physical and was doing real, and I got to the eye chart. I couldn't read the last line on the eye chart. The chief, the Navy chief, I think it was, well, why don't you rest your eyes? I'm going to go out and get a cup of coffee and I'll be back in 5 minutes. So I rested my eyes for 5 minutes. He came back and I still couldn't read the book. Of course, in retrospect, he meant memorize the bottom line. I was a little bit too cheated on it, so I didn't cheat on that one. So I didn't go into the Navy. The V-12 program was a program where you go take a basic sort of training, and then you're back to the university in a field such as medicine or several different fields. But I didn't go into it because I was too honest. Went back to headed for the draft, which came along about a few months later, and I was sworn in December of '3, and then went into service January '44. I had another strange experience in regard to the specialized training deals. Went in there and took the AG Army classification test, and then went back to the barracks. They had 60 guys on the floor, or some 56 in each room. And the next morning, they all called out, and they all left me there. Next day or two, a new crowd came in. 2 days later, left. So finally, I was beginning to wonder what's wrong. So I asked a corporal, "Didn't you know you did well on the CT? You're going to the Army Specialized Training Program, which Army equivalent I'd not gotten to before." So they got a trainload of us. Am I going into detail?
No, I'm very interested.
Okay, a trainload of us, and they made, for some reason, I guess because I'd had in the Boy Scouts, they made me an acting corporal, which means nothing but where all these people from different cities in the southeast, anybody that was drafted through Atlanta, with different skills, and they were sending us all to Fort Benning to the infantry school. It's not really the infantry school, but a part of the church area next to it, to give us our basic training, basic infantry training. And so these boys had an average IQ of 130, 135. My band had a 56. They called us the kids. But we trained. I'm Bill Patey. His father was of the university system, Georgia, and later on he may have gone to Chicago. I don't quote me on that. Mm-hmm. He had raised in they were going to send him to basic and then back to language school, and he'd been in charge of them. Anyhow, we got down and got assigned to different training companies, and then we did the usual basic. Everybody goes to rifle infiltration courses, marching, and it's basically just infantry training. A lot of time on the firing range. I got in an M1 rifle and carbine, and later on I got expert in the machine gun. That was out to Fort Bragg. Barely qualified with the. It's kind of hard. 40. After about 6 weeks, I'm not exact, the ring came out one day, ST being disbanded, and rumors came We said, oh yeah, sure. The next day, it was Army, more infantry soldiers because it was coming up. So they shipped us all out, train loads, around 4,000 of us, between 4,000 and 5,000 of us, were sent to Fort Bragg into the 100th Infantry Division. The 100th Infantry had been around for years, and all its cadre, sergeants, these older guys with minimal education, not much brains. They had been around, knew what they were doing. And then all the quiz kids, and that we got kidded. We everybody made good soldiers. We were proud of our group. So we trained with the division. Missed D-Day because we were still at the, and of course we all saying we were disappointed, but actually I don't think we were. We also got some. We're scheduled to get training on going at landings, you know, but we never got that, and actually we never did. But then around the end of it, they told us, well, this you're going over, which is a long, slow process. We went to Kilmer, and then 10th August, and finally got on the ship 6 October in New York, and waved goodbye to the States. Of course, all troops where we were in horrible conditions on the ship. Had my whole 5 or 6 thousand of us on a ship, held 5 or 600. And day out, we got a hurricane, naturally a little bit. I sick pretty easy. So it was a horrible. I didn't eat days and days and days. One experience on the ship, there was a little bit. A hurricane. They put different people in the company guarding hatches, going out on deck if anybody wanted to go out there, from going. But you know, nobody really would have. But I was out there, total darkness except for lightning. About 1,000 ships in our convoy, all of division 4 ships of my division, and a destroyer and 3 or 4 destroyer. But suddenly, in all this darkness, the whole side, right starboard side, was lit up by lights, and it was in silence and no lights. What the reason for it being is the ship on our starboard had lost control, lost its rudder, and it was headed straight for the part of the ship where I was, about 2/3 back toward the stern. And about the same time I saw the light, the whole ship shuddered. I said, "Good Lord, we've been hit." And then no, it was the engine. See, they put them full, real sharp turn to the stern, full ahead, and the ship behind us was out of control, just or stern by, you know, looked like feet, but it was probably 50 yards or so. Then we went through the. We were the first troops to go straight from the United States to Marseille, and land without, you know, stopping in England. We went through the Strait of Gibraltar at night. Man was on guard, so I got to look. You can see a little bit. Then went along the coast of Africa, Algiers and Casablanca. The reason for doing this is to stay away from where there were so many spies. And then when we got due south of Marseille, made a sharp turn due north and crossed the Mediterranean and hit a storm there. I just began a little bit, and we got into the Marseille harbor. Didn't have to jump in on ships. They were for a month or two before that, but the Germans scuttled ships around the docks, so we couldn't get up to the docks where they have the loading cranes. and they'd put a kind of a bridge, a scuttled ship. We came down a very steep ladder with about 70 pounds pack, a rifle, 8 pounds, helmet, and pretty well down. And I was so weak because of nothing to eat. It took us 15 days to cross. We were zigzagging the whole time, trying to avoid the subs. And last step, my knees buckled, and a German Peter was right down the bottom. He grabbed me, and he kind of smiled, you know. It went through my mind, he must think the war is not lost if they're all this. And then, this is at night. We got there in the morning, and everybody loaded the whole ship except for my company. And by nighttime, it was our turn. And the first thing that me was these little kids speaking French much better than I could. Seemed strange, but of course I'd taken a little French. And we started what was later called the Death March of Marseille. Nobody died, but everybody thought they were going to. Marched uphill all night with all this equipment on, and kept looking for our and it was total dark, and every now and then you'd see something kind of looming up. It was a factory or something. And we'd say, yeah, but this is it. I'm going for hours and hours. Finally stopped, turned left, and went out into a field with about an inch of water on it. And that was it. We lay down in the water. Better speed this up.
No, you're doing fine. It's only how much time you have.
Oh, really?
Years.
Well, I did a little. I won't rush it too totally then. The next day, Colonel built some fires with gasoline. There's nothing to build a fire with, and kind of dried out. We put it down half, put it down, then lay down and put another one on us. But during the night, the water came over it and soaked right into it. But that was just my was to happen during the next 6 months. But the first thing that you is of getting over there. So we dried, and the colonel came around and complimented us on staying dry. we thanked him. We stayed, we had dried out. And then we started going north. Certain numbers of the division were put on trains, and the rest of us stayed another day and cleaned our equipment and so forth. We did get a pass into Marseille, which was interesting. Well, that's a story. But
maybe it's an interesting.
No. One thing was, there was a lady in Fort Bragg that wanted me to buy some silver spoons for her collection. And I went to stores, and my little French was argent means silver, and argent means money. So I was saying, I don't have any argent. Can you sell me a silver spoon without any money? Finally, I got a young lady who understood. Very nice little girl. And she lived on the Rue de Paradis, I think it was. That was where the store was. And I finally got a spoon. I just gave them, a handful of money, and that was American money. But then we, the worst part of this whole thing was, I left out a little bit here. Ship, we were all hot and sweaty, and so the smell of upchuck everywhere. I went to the ship one night. Got in there, took my shower, and I noticed it was the soap couldn't get any lather. And it was salt water shower. So I rinsed the soap off. Then I tried to dry the salt off, and I stayed for days and days and days itching because of the salt. So we got into the area near Marseille as up from, up in the hills above Marseille. Somebody said, "Oh, they got a man has a shower as long as you want for something like that." So we all rushed up there. What he had was a little thing that put water down with a piece of tent around half of it and exposed to the outside. This was in October. It was kind of, and the water was cold, so you could stay as long as you didn't freeze, which is about 30 seconds but I did get the salt off. Anyhow, we got on our jeeps, part of the outfit, and went up the Rhone Valley, sur la Pont d'Avignon, Orange, or however they pronounce it, and up to Epinal, that's where we got off, and then we moved a little closer to the front. Doug took somebody else's clothes over. It started raining, and we were again lying in water, cold water. And about about the 5th of November, we came up. This is in the mountains, and we worked our way up in the mountains, and came up the hill, and we were supposed to walk up the hill. My outfit stayed at the area closest to the road because I was in platoon headquarters, and they said don't step anywhere but where somebody else will step because of mines. Dug holes and covered them up, and then lay down in it. A half tent, the one above. It rained all night, and the water got higher and higher and higher. Again, very, very bad night, not to be actually in combat. And we could, for the first time, hear enemy guns, or ours. We couldn't tell the difference. And it, some people got real jumpy. And up on the hill, one of the fellows took his rifle and blew his head off. So that was our first casualty. They never identified who it was actually. He wasn't in my platoon, or we would have known, but he was in my battalion. From there, later we went online in the area of Baccarat, near Baccarat, and Rayon-le-Top was the first town we did take. And it was interesting. We had a platoon leader, and he didn't know mortars from anything, and he made us carry our mortars up the side of a mountain. I was the instrument corporal. I was the person who was supposed to figure this. The platoon leader was supposed to pick out targets, and I was supposed to tell the guns what direction and at what distance. Well, the platoon leader had never been around a mortar before. To back up, I was a machine gunner in the States, and then I got trained in mortar before we got there because of a good friend of mine. And I was acting corporal, but still PS. But I kept saying, Lieutenant, we cannot fight in this position. He'd been in the 2nd Airborne or something, I believe. Anyhow, they gave him to us. But he said, "Oh, do what you're told." This wasn't our first, it was about the second.
Sir.
But anyhow, our leader had been, our company commander had worn out. He was an old man, about 35, 45, and he just couldn't take combat, and we hadn't really gotten any heavy. And we had this new guy, and I kept telling him, "No, we do it." I was a PFC, telling the lieutenant. Finally, the lieutenant came by, just reamed him, just cussed him out really good. Everything I had wanted to tell him. So we moved back down the mountain. A day or two before that, I don't remember the name of the town. Anyhow, you don't know it anyhow. Is in that Rayon-le-Top area. One of the machine gunners that I had been with, we got word that he was my first friend to get killed.
Yes, sir.
They said you got a bullet right in the middle of this. So we took right on the top, then went to Edival on the 22nd of November, around the 5th of November. Okay, we went into in the mountains and moved up, I think it's Hill 472, but they put us in a platoon in a village. And the Germans had been there before us, and they had kind of fouled the place up. And we were kind of, they'd booby-trapped it. We did go to the area under the place, a little trap door, and that's where we slept. It had, they had cut logs and put it on the floor, so you knew that if the shell came in, it would roof and explode there, and the shrapnel would be stopped by the logs. That's when we, in that place, we got a meal, and I don't mean meal, for shipment from home other than you know, packed from home. We shared all sorts of, you know, Jewish, Italian, all sorts of spices, and they with us from the south.
So you had care packages.
Yeah, they're all things from home, and they had not delivered them prior to this time. We'd been a month or two, but we got all the food we needed. And my sent me a great delegation from the States was, you know, everything was rationed, but cheese and they sent me cheese. We'd been living on K rations. Lunch meal was cheese with little pieces of ham in it, so I was very about this time. I never let them know. I thanked them so much, but said, perhaps you better keep it since it's so hard to get have plenty here. At that point, the battalion headquarters was too far from where we had our mortars, and we did get shelled every now and then. I was in a hole one time, they shelling, and time a shrapnel came in and hit the side of the hole I was in. But the battalion head commander came up where the platoon lieutenant and my wife says I shouldn't say where the platoon lieutenant and I had and the platoon sergeant had our forward observation post, and he came up beside me. Where are your glasses? My field glasses. I didn't wear glasses during the war. There was too much snow and rain, and so I used my field glasses when I really wanted to see in the distance. And that issued to me as a forward observer for mortars. And right then the Germans just let us have it, and everybody went different ways. And he took my glasses, my field glasses. So a day or two later, some sergeant or lieutenant from certainly not the colonel, came back and said, the colonel got some of my glasses. I got my glasses back a day or two later.
Lucky thing.
Yeah. Now, at this same place, this is 22nd of November, we got our first cooked food, and we got our first shower other than showers. This is not, but this is instant. Shall I tell it?
Well, me.
Just interesting thing that happened. I was in D Company, 3rd Platoon. They started with 1st Platoon in the morning. Old on a river between where we were, and it was kind of really the front line, but it was the enemy could see it to shoot at it. They'd have to drop a mortar. Rigged it with a pump and showers. The A Company, B Company, they all got their showers. By the time it got to 3rd Platoon D, it was late at night, and we went in and we got our warm shower, a trickle of water, but it was fresh water, not salt, and warm. I felt so good. And out in the, before you go into the showers, they had everybody just took their clothes off and threw them on, and the 800 men trampled. They got out of the showers, they didn't have any clothes. They had given, people had taken 2 sets of uniforms. So there were clothes for us, and we said, what do we do? You could hardly see, they just had little lights, especially since it was at the front. So they said, out on the floor. And, you know, we were all smelling pretty hard this time, having not had a real shower since the United States. And so I had to pick out something that fit me, and it smelled like somebody else's smell. An awful feeling to have and clean, and then the bit dirtier than you had. We did get them a day later. The same day we had gotten some frozen turkey or preserved some kind. First time we'd gotten anything that wasn't out of a can. So it was a good day. And then we got the food we had to eat, and then in the middle of the night they said, we're moving out. So we finished eating, and we couldn't carry it because we could. So we had to leave food behind and move to another town nearby.
And probably eat rations in the next town, or
okay.
Were we able to liberate?
No, there's more K than yeah, which is just it's stuff you carry inside you feel, you know, flat. Three different choices: breakfast, lunch, and the same. I mean, each day was the same. We survived. We did find some vitamin C in that little town. Germans had left cans of liquid C, like lemon juice, and we ate. Oh, and in this place we found old black bread before we got our packages. We were afraid they might have left it, but they didn't. So the next thing was a pretty bad battle was, and we moved east from there, and we pretty little peak. Of course, we didn't know that it was made there, and I don't know if I knew at the time.
I don't know what it is now. Would you tell me?
Oh, it's one of the our most expensive glass. They make little glass statues, $300 or $400 each. Very pretty stuff. I own one little tiny piece that I bought. I went back after the war and bought. But in Lingen, it was there was a valley that you had to go through to get where you're going. Railroads through it, roads went through it, and we got up close to it. The German booby traps the end of the town, and it was kind of steep on either side. And they had the 88s zeroed in, so we couldn't go that way. So we fanned out, and the leader and I went to the left, and we found a house crawled up through the woods, and there was a house with steel shutters and a house, indoor plumbing, the work. The few houses we'd seen up to that were typical peasants, one room house, 1 room plus 2 bedrooms usually. Cows part of it, but modern, and we cracked and see the town down below. And the battle began. We had our mortars behind us, and wires to them. I was up in this forward observation to direct the mortar. And a machine gun started firing right beside us, to our left flank. If he had it over a couple degrees, he would have been shooting us, German. Shooting it down at my buddies that were coming through the valley. I met pretty stiff resistance, and A Company was able to work their way up into the edge of the town on the right flank. I've forgotten. We had, you always do things in 3 in the Army. A Company, B Company, attack, C is in reserve, or any combination of that, those 3.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, always a third of your battalion in reserve. Always 1 battalion of every regiment is in reserve. 1 regiment out of a division is in reserve. So you always got some reserve. So we went in 3 companies, and 2 companies with 1 in reserve. And they got up in the town during the night, did not post very good guards. A Company plus two platoons of machine guns, which I had once. I'd previously belonged to those platoons, those squads. 2 squads from my company, and they got taken by surprise, and they killed all guards, and all 6 squads got out. You know, out of 220 people, 20 got out. So we lost 200 that night. Of course, the next day the civilian. Then we called in for the big guns. We were our mortars at anything that moved and just tearing the town up, and not really knowing if the Germans were shooting, but that's what you do. And then they the next day, after we knew we'd lost A Company, the regimental commander, the chicken colonel, came down and came out of our forward outpost. He through the woods and was looking at the slit where we were looking. And I felt sorry for him. It was the company commander and people that were at fault for not really putting their fight, getting captured like that, having enough guards out. But he got relieved. The regimental commander, Colonel was his name. But he went up there to see what was going on. A lot of brass there. That's the closest I've ever seen a full colonel.
He was relieved after the battle?
Yeah, he was punished for the losing the company. That was one out of his 12 companies, or 12 companies plus headquarters. There are 12 line in a regiment. But we started firing at everything, and then called in some of the big guns way back. They just pulverized the town. We sent out a squad patrol from where I was. They left where I was, and only about half of them came back the first night. And then we started, and then we got the orders to move into the town the next day. We were running down through the town, hoping we weren't going to get resistance. And running as a dirt road, and I saw 3 little wires sticking out of the ground, and I kind of flipped my body. I did it, but my foot didn't come down. It was a what do you call it? Leaping Lena. You touch one of those and a small explosion shoots the charge up in the air, and then it comes down. It's a whole squad. And so I stopped and put a little piece of toilet paper on it to keep the other guy hitting it. And we weren't getting shot at. I don't know if I would have stopped. And the town had been abandoned. But we lost, as I say, it was a bad luck town. Been back since. There's a nice little inn with good food. Had coq au vin in this little country. So that was winging. Later, we attacked the Maginot Line, and from some stars said the Maginot put a bayonet into it. It was so old and decrepit. We got 240 millimeter guns firing straight, level down, firing into it, and they'd bounce off. It was well built. After a week, we were attacking in the Fort Freud area, and bitch. I'm a son of bitch. I got a card. I got a card proving it. Everybody that was in that.
Now, how is that spelled?
TCHE. Everybody in the division is eligible. Also, $1 and got a card, And we also have sons of bitch rings and stuff. Okay. But if you were there, I guess they didn't give any posthumous ones. But we're all sons of bitch. Beach. It should be beach. We were in the Fort Freudenberg area, and we did Have you heard anything about the Maginot on any other
No,
people?
I'm familiar with the term. If that was a division from the First World War of the territory between France and Germany.
Well, no. It was a line of underground forts built all the way from along the German-French border, on as far up as Belgium, Holland, and that was possible. To go through the Maginot, couldn't, just yanked it up north and went into Holland and Belgium, Luxembourg. But the Germans got through it. But we were trying to do what they couldn't do, and they were inside. The guns of the forts, they had some that would pop up, and they could fire in any direction. Then they had other guns that were aimed over toward Germany, which didn't help them too much. But we couldn't, you know, nothing would hurt the you couldn't stand back and shoot them with 140 millimeter cannons, and it wouldn't. But eventually we did break through and occupy part of Fort Freudenberg. And these things were, you know, many feet thick, concrete, coarse concrete. Some of them are 2 and 3 and 4 stories down. There were roads, under roads that connected to lots and lots of them. And we did occupy one. I got sent back to the hospital about the time I got the flu, and the medic made me go to the hospital. Bath there too. Bath. Maybe saw. But when I got back, they had gotten into this castle, into this fort.
Where do you think the hospital was?
Back toward Saarburg.
Thank you.
In fact, I came through. It wasn't in, but to get back, I went to Saarburg. Got a trip back to. It was in. I mean, it was. We were on what was called Ryerville. Oh, that's really tell you the whole story. Went up Ryerville Ridge, going along behind the crest of the hill. Thought we were. We had a big part of a mountain between us and the Germans. Suddenly, shell explosions above us, and they were using anti-aircraft guns. You know, explode at a certain height. Very desperate feeling, because we'd always, when we had shells coming in, we'd hit the dirt. And the shells would hopefully go over you. Well, here they were up here, and they were coming right down in holes and right down into your ditch. But it was a single guy. I mean, there was about 30 guys, 40, maybe 50, could have been killed, but were. So about that night, we didn't try to go to the ground, and I started having the shakes and all that, and the medic came over. Somebody reported I was shaking. So the medic came down and says, he took me down there, you got 100, you got to go to the hospital. And some of the guys were around. I said, oh no, we're going to attack them. I'm going to stay with the troops. And he said, no, you've got to go back. And I said, no, I'm not going back. He said, you got to. Oh, well. I let him talk to me. I felt so bad. I wanted to go, but I didn't want to guys letting it down. So we walked back down the hill into Ryerville to a little, it was a bit aid. And they tagged me, and I said, I know who I am. Put me waited for a while, got in a 4 stretcher ambulance, just World War II ambulances from what they were in the 30s. And the guy above me everybody was shot except me. Like I was kind of shirking in front of me. Every now and then a drop would come down hitting me. But we did get back to the hospital, and I shook and shake and got turpin hydrate and
Turpin hydrate, is that a drug?
It's codeine turpin hydrate. It's medicine. They got a little of that in medicines now, but it was just kind of a generic sort of thing that they used. They're too big for AP and codeine with turpin hydrate. It was cold. Had these stoves, gasoline or anything burning, and you're on your bunk and you're shaking from the having the cold, and your right side, your one side's burning up because you're not too far from the stove, so you just kept turning to try to keep. Yeah, I was down there in the hospital for a few days and came back, and they had gotten into the first fort there. And I went back, I looked at the gun positions, and they said, "How are you digging gun positions?" And they had gotten some help from engineers. From then on, the ground was frozen. Later on, it got down to 30 below. And later, it was in January. By this time, every night. One thing I remember about the war: freezing. I mean, being cold all the time. Being wonderful, where it wasn't, the wind wasn't blowing. But they had these. They'd gotten some plastic explosives, and they'd dig a hole. If you want to split trench, for the trench, you'd just dig a little trench out wide and put two little strands and blow it, and it'd get you the right size. And big hole like for a gun, big enough for a mortar, and 5 times. You'd have to know what you put a lot of explosives. But that's what we were doing at that.
Did you have anything warm at all in the cold winter?
Prepared in clothing. When we got to Fort Camp Kilmer in before we came over, they issued you these clothes, and they gave me these shoes, and I said, "Those size, I could put my feet in them with my shoes on." They said, "That's what you want." They were snowpacks, and they and you had 2 3/4 of an inch thick. And then you wear wool socks, then 2 pairs of ski socks, and by that time you'd fill up this rubberized snowshoe. For clothing, we wore cotton wear first, a long 2-piece long johns, wool, very scratchy, and then another 2 pairs of long johns, sort of like thermal underwear, only it was made out of wool. Then on top of that, you'd wear a wool uniform, khaki trousers, khaki shirt. On top of that, we'd wear a field jacket. The material it's made of, sort of water resistant, like canvas, but not heavy canvas. Jacket and trousers. Then on top of that, we have reversible parkas, khaki on one side and white on the other. When there's a lot of snow, we got into real snow, we put the white side out. And on our head, we'll cap, helmet liner, a hood, a hood from the field, then a hood from the your parka hood, and but at one time we very toes were lost. Guys that got over there in cotton boots, they were losing toes all the time. But we fortunately had got snow. But even so, at night you would later there's a lot of snow. We'd want to. It's time. You take a little sleep, and if you could find a snowbank, then you could just kind of plow down in that. And that was only 30 degrees instead of below. The wind helped. One night we were limbering a couple towns. I didn't have any of our gear, any of our at night would most have a sleeping bag. It wasn't real down. It wasn't down. It was just 2 layers of khaki again in a water-resistant cover, but you take nothing off except your head and get all of you in that. And if you're out, you dry during the night because it was raining or snowing all the time. But one night we seldom got into during that first couple of months. We seldom got inside a house or even a barn. We were just out in the mountains. But we went to a barn one time, and we opened the barn, and the cows in there looked like steam coming out, but it's all relative. It was not warm in there. We found a hayloft in there. Dug down in the hayloft as deep as, but fully clothed. We were pretty comfortable. We got up the next day and pulled my parka back, water canteen out, started to drink it, and it was frozen. So under my parka was freezing. I was had 4 years. But so we ended up in this pillbox, and I was leaning up against the wall, and where to getting the figures up for the Germans dropped in a shell, direct hit on the other same wall. My head bounced a bit, but it didn't break it. But I knew not to put my head against the wall. And we were there a few days. I remember how we managed, where we went from there exactly. But we took over Freudenberg Farms, Fort Chiswick, a good bit of the area. And I know how we got let's see the dates. December 11th. Up there, Battle of the Bulge came. On the 16th or something like that.
German counterattack.
Yeah, the big they called it the Ardennes, and we called it the Bulge. And when we got through there, I mean, when that break through, the reason they there, I'm not the Army historian. Hit a young unit. They were spread thin to begin with. I think they didn't. The Thais didn't think that the Germans would go through the Ardennes. They did in World War II a couple times because it was too many or something or other. Too good for tanks. It's like around, you know.
To learn about it, coming up on that 50th anniversary. Well,
yeah.
I haven't heard it talked about quite much. I've heard it from lots of perspectives, and I'd like to.
Yeah, but I wasn't in it. I was of it, but it affected us pretty bad. And as a new unit coming over from the States, they hadn't expected in that area, so they had them real close together, the units, and they just made a crack in that, and then pushed right on through. And a lot of units thing, but as a had to shift our we pulled back in our line. We had thin our lines down, cover territory, so getting kind of thin too. As compared with normally when you attack, at least 3 to 1 odds in your favor. You want to have 3 many people as they, and that's possible. But did pull back, and that's how we fought for from December 11th up to the 16th or something. It was here a nice little 25th of December, Christmas Eve, 24th. My battalion was in reserve. We hadn't been off the line. I don't think we were getting our share of reserves, but we were not on the line. My regiment was, but my battalion was not. And we got in a little town called Citation. There was a nice little lady with daughters, Elise and something Burlette. And they spoke German and French, and I spoke some German and a lot of some French. And they had a one house. I mean, you go into the room, it's the kitchen, the dining room, family room, living room, one chairs probably in the, and they did that. I think they had might have been, they might have had an indoor pump. Some people had to go outside. Brett welcomed us with open arms, and about 5 or 6 of us went into a room that would fit a bed in it, and maybe about a foot on each side of it, about 2 feet on the bottom. So we just covered the whole room with bodies. I mean, we lay down or on the bed. I don't even know, but it was so much better that I didn't care if I was on the floor. I remember one of the girls said at night, she said, "Troima sus," and I didn't know what. I said, "What does that mean?" She says, "Sus." Finally, sweet dreams. But she said, and then the next morning, somebody knocking on the door, out and get up. So how little tiny things like that. No. But the next morning, I started and stuff with girls, and the problem was either age to her, and the girl didn't have a boyfriend. But that was from the war for a day.
Sure, it was a change to
be inside and speak to a girl. Yeah, very beautiful, as I remember, but probably in reality, it all depends. Right. So then that was the 25th. Then we moved up online, and on first we were looking over into Urbach, I think either on the or in Germany. We assumed some other people's positions, and it was cold up there. They had a hole in logs over it, and you barely get in and out. You had to crawl. If you'd had claustrophobia, you wouldn't have gone in there. In the night, the phone started, and it was the forwarders saying they're attacking in force, and this was New Year's Eve, and they assumed, I guess, that we were drunk, and we didn't drink any time in the war. If we were in a real combat position, how they drunk something. So I didn't really care for alcohol anyhow. But it was attacking in force, and he said, "Give me fire on primary target number 1, 3, and 5, and 6." This is where I'd figured the map where the Germans come. Kind of little paths coming from them toward us, or little draws, or natural ways they fire on those 4 guns, and the other 2 guns move them over 20 yards. So in minutes, as soon as we could scramble out of that place and get the other gunners, we wiped out the attack in that. The machine guns never fired a shot. My 6 guns I had directing. I was a corporal by this time. I'm killed. Corporal job open. But we broke up the New Year's attack in our battalion area, and that was the start of the Nordwind. And you've never heard of it. Very few people, because we won. It was North Wind, and we call it Nordwind. This was Hitler's last big. Everybody thinks that the Battle of the Bulge, the last big push. But Hitler had one more chance. So there were more divisions in Nordwind than there were in the Bulge. The French had left 3 divisions more south of us, behind us, got so many divisions in front. So between those 2 behind and in front of us, there were more involved in the battle. Hitler did that, and that night was the first that battle, Hitler decided that he would direct this one personally, so he had direct phone local. Told them, do not use your tanks until you're through the wood. Well, we never got out of the wood, so they couldn't use them. It took us about 2 weeks. The next, am I wrong here?
No, you're not. There's a chance tape at some point, and I'll have to go next door to get tape.
Okay.
I like the go long.
Okay.
But I don't have anyone else scheduled for the rest of the and to be honest, as much time as I'll ask questions later. The tale of the experience of industry has been wonderful, and I'm interested in anything as time as we've got.
Okay. Well, I got the one. Now in the line. Oh, at Ur, we beat up, and then they moved us for some reason and let a green in, and you could hear them coming from miles. Came up, lighting up cigarettes at 4 it got dark at 4 in the afternoon over there at this time. Lighting up cigarettes, they're banging gasoline. I said, good grief, let's get out of here. We jumped on our jeeps, or some of us were on foot, and we took off and just got out. They got a artillery barrage on them for making all these troops. But I won't mention the next division. Never did get good. Well trained in the state, I don't think. Days later, it's all in the same big battle. Our troops of the 97th, I was in the 398th Infantry, B Company 398th Infantry, part of the 100th Division. The 396th was one of our regiments, one of the other regiments. They were up in a town called and getting powdered, but they were holding on. Tremendous casualties, but they said that we were to leave them. My battalion of the 398th, the first of the 398th. So we were in a little town called Rock, and I can see exactly where we slept that night, and I'm back and it's still there. The same barn is still there, and the thing's the same. They've built one new house in the town of Giesing. We went up to Giesing jeeps because we had more, and front 4 bridges we set up a command post and put our mortars across. There's a little draw across, like they've been mining or something. A little gravel across the dirt road. Set them up there, and I figured, and before they shot, they started firing and hit the church, because they always use church steeples for posts. So I don't know, but so they started firing on the church, and they got the jeep that I had a few minutes before. We put our jeeps back in the center of town, and we moved up. And so the battle. So that was going to be my position for that observation post. And my best machine guns, Dun Squire, boy with the 150. The boy with the high IQ. He didn't get he got killed later. He came walking by a machine gun. I got instead toward the until we came to the top of the hill where I couldn't go any further without. And we talked and said during the battle, it was kind of a suicide attack. Everybody got pinned down. They kept shelling us, shooting them. The wire between where we were and the guns across the street, wires getting knocked out. So the platoon runner and I took turns that street, that's across that road covered with snow. They would always shoot when we ran across it. Always hit the snow times going across it. A couple more was in with our mortars and go off. At least one did not go off. The house we were in, the second story, got knocked off. They're pinned down in the snow all day. The captain beside him was killed. And when the captain was killed, he took the captain's gun and kept forward. But then that got pinned down the rest of the day. And when the nightfall came, we retreated. It's the worst. It was a bad feeling to be. But I didn't see him after that. He became shell-shocked. They called it in World War I, and battle fatigue, World War I, hysterical, and laughing, crying and laughing. They took him back to the, gave him a saw to, psychotherapy or whatever. And my feet, I think I got frostbite. We were up in that snow. And on the third day, they did look at him. He did actually have frostbite. Not enough to lose the thing, but they were in pretty bad shape for a little while. So that night, we walked back the way we'd come back from Geising. We never got to Geising, and then we went back to a little called Rohrbach, and went by the place where we were 3 days before. Took even further back, miles from the easing. Set up our mortars there. We a couple of times, and I got a call from somebody cut out. That round went behind. I said, "Hell no, I didn't. I figured correctly. Let's guns did. What happened was it was so cold, the base plate slipped. The shot landed behind them, and it didn't land. But it wasn't my fault. They could have been if it was behind them. It didn't get them. And that was my friend. They didn't come back to the machine guns, but he was so smart that they sent him back to battalion headquarters, and he became the guy who wrote up awards. One fellow in a battle a little later on got the National Medal, with him to an interview, Medal of Honor winner, C Company, Mike Halalio. That when we get to it. So what did we do then? We moved back and set up, and they fired behind. And that night, there were civilians there, and they were making coffee by roasting barley, I think. They did some to us. We said, you better leave. Take some of our coffee and go to a safer spot. And people, some were up 4 or 5, and I got in my sleep, and suddenly we did get rid of the civilians, and at night, 8, 6 or 7, heard a horrible sound, and it was memes. Germans call them Mabel cloud throw. A 9 rocket launcher with huge, heavy, 10, and one of them, and they were all trying to get to the cellar. Couldn't get the zipper undone on my sleeping bag. Yeah, yeah. From then on, you had one on each liner. I only had one.
What were those bags made of? Cotton?
The outside was kind of, it looks like it's kind of a not as heavy as a field jacket, but it's similar material, basically cotton, yeah. But it was slightly, it was resistant. You wouldn't want to put it light. And then it had just a army blanket, like a body bag or something. And yeah, and you had two liners. We kept and they, if you were poorly clothed, they were pretty warm. And we'd put our helmet down and sometimes. About this time, the ceiling starts caving. A little there fell beside me, and scary, but it wasn't. Nobody got hurt. And then the war ended for us. I don't remember the sequence. Yes, I do. We went east of Lemberg, another. I have maps and all this stuff, but and being a map corporal, I'm the only one that remembers all that. The regular where he is knows. He goes. I was talking to another fellow who's in my division. I didn't know at the time. He's first to hear. He said he didn't know it wasn't in Lemberg, the town we next approached. And on one side up there without sleeping bags, we all night, and didn't have sleeping bags, so it was kind of a little hill. It's in the deep, but little hill where there weren't too many trees, and 6 or 8 slept together. I said, man, we got as close as we could, and you hoped that you were not the one on either end. And then around 1 or 2 o'clock, our sleeping bags did get there. Oh, and the whole afternoon was this little draw, a little dirt road, and then a little draw. And the morning, right at that intersection, they found a sign, just missed inches. I'm sure that happened more often than we knew. And then we got into the town on the 20th of January, and by this time the Battle of North Bend was pretty well over, and they were spent. We were kind of spent. We were preparing for the spring offensive and fight any big battles from 20 January to 13. And we were put into a house in the edge of this, behind the hill between us and Germans, put our guns, a draw, in the railroad, kind of a raised area for the railroad machine guns. And by this time, the machine guns had lost their instrument corporal. And you can fire a machine gun from down the hill, across over the hill, at an unseen object if you have the charts. And I was taught, a good friend, one of them was killed. One was, I think he had back broken or something other. That's how my second strike. But I was the only instrument corporal after those two had gone. And they called and said, "You know anything about and the machine?" I said, "Sure. That's where I started out." And I said, "I have a chart." And we had these little wooden thing that showed you exactly the trajectory of the bullet. So I figured out where to fire and not be seen. And that was at Lemberg. That's about the only time I had knowledge of machine guns. So we were there till March 15. As I said, the house kind of got shorter and shorter. The shells would come over the hill and hit the attic, and then the 3rd floor, and then never did much damage on the 2nd floor. And we were on the 1st floor with sandbags the windows, and got a little plastic from the gas mask, from the gas mask, or from the cape that they gave with it. So we had a little light during the daytime, but we were indoors. No real particular heat, but I almost got shot there by. Well, of course, coming in all the time. The house next to us was destroyed, and I don't know why it wasn't. I guess it got hit by a large mortar that could come over the hill. And one night there was a girl there who they left some civilians in the town, and they were way down on the side of the hill, and I went down to see this little girl one time. And Marie Fazal, her father hugged me and kissed me and told me he won World War I by himself. He was against the and brought out schnapps. And he did just down on me, just pure firewater. But anyhow, when I got ready to leave, they only had one room, and room off of it, I guess. Blew out, opened the door, and they spoke German. These are Alsatians or Lorrainians, Lothringers. I said, "Guten Nacht, auf Wiedersehen." Suddenly, behind me and hits the door, and I hit the dirt, which happened to be a cow manure dung pile, but it's frozen solid, so. And lay there, got my ready. I think I already had a cartridge off, and was about to start shooting it. Heard, and suddenly somebody said something. What's the password or something like that? I yelled out. I used some expletives because I knew it was some. And it turned out to be a corporal from my company, my platoon actually. And his name was Thompson, Corporal Thompson, the other Corporal Thompson. And he just heard some German being spoken and shot at in that direction. We didn't get into a fight, but I really let him have it. Anyhow, one night we opened the door, and it was outside. They'd started using bouncing against the clouds, at a low angle, and they would turn them on at our patrols would go. This is the time where patrols. They'd send out patrols, we'd send out patrols, and try to capture somebody and get some information, or just keep sure they weren't coming up on us. Opened the door one time because it did have an outside privy, which is always frozen. By this time, 30 below every night, and what's this light? And that's what they were doing. And patrols would know when the lights were going to be turned on. It'd be at a different time every night. And what they were hoping to do was just catch some Germans out in no man's land, in between the troops. We didn't call it no man's land in World War II, but it was a surprise, and it helped. Apparently helped keep them on their toes and keep us. Then after that, 20 January to 13 March, 2 months almost 2 months in a house. We thought we were in heaven. And besides getting shot at by a friend of mine. Oh, when we were there, we did capture German. There was a barn full of German ammo, and we found. But they left a gun, a mortar. So we used it. We just wanted to go ahead and use it up. So for all day we fired out at the Germans. They were out in the woods. We played it smart. We were in the town woods. And suddenly I got this call from the forward observer, cussing me out. Said the went behind us, and I said no, it didn't. The must have done something. He said you figured wrong. You calculated wrong. What had happened? They had fired so often times the base plate frozen ground against a house with probably a 3-foot stone wall, and they fired so often that it broke through the ground and through the wall, and the mortar ended up in the basement. And naturally, if you got the mortar down like that, the round came in very close behind our troops. So twice it happened. Not my fault either time. Though I got cussed out for it. Then on March 15th, we made our second attack on the Maginot. The bitch went back through the places we'd been. And
that feel like deja vu?
Yeah, we this time there was much opposition. They didn't just give it to us. But then we got to ride down into the city of Bitch, which we'd never gotten close to before. It was kind of fun. I didn't mention the cold and that first box when we were there the first time. The pillbox. You know what a pillbox is? So my children don't.
Why don't you tell me what a pillbox is?
Okay. Well, the man in a series of forts, underground, massive concrete, and then on the top of each one of them they have from which they fire, and it looks like a pillbox, and so we called the whole fort a pillbox, which is kind of a misnomer because that was only the top that fired. But it's Fort Freudenberg, or one of the units. There were about 10 units, and we'd stand guard, and the wind came from miles, and nothing between us and Germany except some barbed wire. And the wind came from the north. One guard would stand at the back, no wind. The other guy would stand at the left side, moderate wind. One on the right got the full blast for miles. So every 15 minutes we'd switch because we'd put towels over our faces, and it'd freeze up, and our eyebrows would freeze. It looked like those pictures you see of the Arctic explorer that died in the snow. But we were able to survive by changing every 15 minutes, and it really made a difference between 30 below with a 30-mile wind and 30 below with no wind. I backtracked some. So we took Bitch on the 15th of March. We went north. Some celebration of the civilians, you know. And we'd had celebration on some of these other little towns. They threw flowers and wine and kiss you and all that. But then we moved east and secured Ludwigshafen on the Rhine, and we crossed at the Rhine on Ludwigshafen, Mannheim, under a strong, much artificial smoke, you know, smoke screen. And the troops in front of us, we were motorized. I think we were all on cars, vehicles. Sometimes we'd have some of us riding, some walking. But I could hear the troops up ahead of us cheering and whistling and everything like that. And this is on 31 March. And we couldn't see because of the smoke. And as the smoke cleared and we got closer, we saw this girl sitting on the remains of a stone wall, beautiful legs, waving to us, and it was Marlene Dietrich. She had beat me across the Rhine. We went the first troops across because Marlene beat us.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, we were very pleased. We were always very. Is that the end of the tape?
I'm checking. I don't believe so.
Okay.
Still going.
Okay, so years across, and I've always had a warm place for Marlene Dietrich since then.
Oh yeah, she only died a couple of years ago, but I'm
yeah. We went into Germany, or we were already in Germany, but we made a right turn and down toward aimed toward Stuttgart, and the Germans decided they're going to make a big stand there. Part of the division went into Haupt, did house-to-house fighting. My battalion crossed 3 rivers, I think it was. We crossed the Neckar River on a pontoon bridge. Then we crossed the yachts, and maybe another. There's a bunch of rivers there. we were in this Bad Wimpfen, which was, a lot of the buildings were from Friedrich Barbarossa's castles. And a huge tower there we could see for miles. I won't, how fast do you want me to go?
I don't want you to speed up. I think that the detail is marvelous, and when I run out of tape, I'll go next door to get another and get you a drink of water.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good. Okay, Bad Wimpfen, interesting town. We were there for a day or two with nothing to do. We were on a cliff overlooking is a Bad Wimpfen, which means a bath, a resort town from the time, probably from the time of the Romans. And we were in these ruins of Friedrich Barbarossa. There's a very tall tower there, and we climbed to the top of that, and you could see from many, ad infinitum from the top of the tower. It took you about 15 minutes to climb it. And but where we were on the ground level, we were on a cliff. The cliff just dropped off, so we could see from there. We had our guns set up, and a German soldier starts walking out in the some kind of we call them, what do you call them? Apple orchard or peach, or some kind of orchard. It was too early to see much. 7th April. But he's just taking it easy out there, and I said, well, let the man, let him have a little fun. We're not working too hard, and he's not shooting at us. Some of the younger soldiers, they were all young, but the ones that were a little bit more country or gung-ho or something or other. I said, we can't let that guy stand out there. Give us the range and the azimuth. I said, you don't want to kill that man. He's not. I don't think he's got a gun on him. He was so far away you could hardly see him with field glasses. And so the battle went on all day. They kept pestering me. Finally, I said, well, you're gonna kill yourself, because he's so far out there. You have to add extra increments to get much about.
No, sorry.
To get distance with a mortar, it comes with a certain number of increments. These are sort of nitrocellulose, like explosives. And when the mortars drop down, it has what's like a shotgun shell on the bottom with holes in it. The fire shoots out and ignites these increments, and then it shoots, goes into the air. And to get more, to shoot in real close, you aim it real high and only put one increment on it. And if you want to go way out, you drop it. And in combinations, you have charts. I didn't have to do that. The guns did that. I just told them to direct the distance. And they would pull off enough increments to get it came fully loaded. I said, you can I've forgotten the exact figures. We did a lot of firing around 1,800 yards and 1,600, 15, 20, 2,000. And above that, we didn't do a whole lot. And this guy was out 3,000 yards, I guess, 2 miles. And it didn't look that far, but I kind of guessed and figured. My map didn't exactly show me which apple tree he was beside. And finally, I said, you can't reach him anyhow. They said, let's give it a try. And I said, well, finally I agreed, with knowing that they weren't going to hit the guy. So they dropped the shell in. They added some extra increments, and nobody stood too close to the gun except one of these crazy guys to the mortar. We call it the tube instead of a gun. And I was watching with my field glasses, and one or two other guys had field glasses. Everybody was watching this guy out there, and he wasn't moving. He was just kind of standing and looking around. And suddenly, it seemed like minutes later, I don't know how many seconds it was, he disappears in a cloud of smoke. I had this feeling, good Lord, we killed that poor old German soldier who wasn't bothering us. And the smoke cleared, and there he was, standing looking very shocked. And then he started running, and we some of us cheered that we didn't kill him. That's just a little human interest. When you're trying to kill them, okay, if they got guns and they're shooting at you, but he wasn't bothering anybody. And I wouldn't have given him the azimuth. I was perfect on the azimuth. He just disappeared because directly in front of him the shell landed, but they just couldn't get quite the yardage I told them. So at Mod Bimpfen, we were there a few days, and I got to explore some of these old the remains of the Friedrich Barbarossa's castle. And after a couple of days, they started moving out. They woke us up, moved us. We lay down, another house. Then we marched down this long road down to the river, and they had a bridge. We crossed that, went some few more miles, and crossed another one, I think. Anyhow, we came to the area where we were going to fight. It was called Erdheim, was the town we were going to try to get into, and we were in Untergriesheim, and we were setting up our mortars there. And some tankers came up, and we had never had close tank support. And we had been told that there was a battalion of Home Guard defending this area by our intelligence, which was a little defective. This is April the 7th. The tankers, I started talking to them, and they were so jumpy. I just couldn't stand it. They got me jumpy. I wasn't scared. I mean, anybody tells you they're not afraid before a battle, they're either crazy or just plain lying. But I wasn't shaken.
So there's degrees of fear.
Yeah. I mean, you're scared, but you don't tremble all over. Well, these guys were so jumpy that it was contagious. So I left that area, and I went into there was a little house that we were using as a CP. I was inside. I came out, and a bullet came in and hit the facing of the door as I came out. Another bullet that didn't quite make it. And this is before the battle started. One of the Germans was just letting us know they were down there. So the battle started, and it turned out to be a regiment of SS with self-propelled guns, zeroed-in 88s, just the whole deal. They had just a battle, almost another suicide attack. And during the battle, this is my battalion, 4 companies, A, B, C, D. A guy from C Company got all revved up, got too much adrenaline, and there were machine gun nests all around, and he was running out, throwing grenades, wiping out machine gun nest after machine gun nest. He was carrying a submachine gun, I believe it was, and it jammed or gave out of ammo. He jumped up on one of the tanks. They were advancing with tanks, and asked if he could use the external 30 millimeter, or maybe 50, I don't know, the external machine gun. So he kept doing that, and people were dying everywhere, or either digging in. If you're standing up, you're getting killed. If you're lying down, you might not. But he just went berserk, and he just kept killing Germans. Finally, the tanks decided they'd had all they wanted, and they started backing off. And they threw him out a submachine gun, and he kept it up. Finally, he figured out that he was the only American still out that far forward, and so he started coming back. And on the way back, one of his buddies was wounded and couldn't move and couldn't crawl, and so he drug him back to safety. And he got the Congressional Medal of Honor. Mike Calalio, a guy from the New Jersey or New York or somewhere.
Yes, indeed.
and as I say, after the war, couple months later, I went with my buddy to interview him to get his side of the story. He'd already been nominated, but then you have to get his story and collate them and present it, and he got it. Very unassuming fella. He just got a super dose of adrenaline or temporary insanity. It takes a little insanity to make the heroes.
Motivating factor.
Yeah, yeah. That was a bad battle. 7th of April. I didn't. Then we were working our way. Oh, and part of the unit was in Heilbronn, and that was a real bad battle too. Worse, just as bad as ours, if not worse. Street fighting, pretty bad. I never was in any. Then we worked our way south. We were in a little town, and we secured the town, and they thought it was secure, and they brought the chow trucks up, which they really wanted to be secure. Those guys really don't like combat too much, and though they get in trouble every now and then. And we were in chow line, and Germans started shelling, and another guy and I dove for the same doorway, and his rifle butt laid my eyebrow open pretty bad, and I don't know if I finished supper or not, but anyhow, went to the platoon CP, is where I worked. We set up a new CP each place we're in, and the lieutenant said, "Thompson, you better go get that sewed up. You'll get a Purple Heart because it was as a result of enemy action." I thought, "Oh, well, okay." He said, "Too bad I had a pass going to Paris for you." And I said, "Give me the pass and the Band-Aids." So I never got my Purple Heart, but I did get a pass to Paris. And that was fantastic, leaving a place where the bodies along the street as you go out, getting clean, getting shaved, and
Paris in the spring of '45 then?
Yeah, April 23rd or so. And that took us, a day on the train to get the trucks back to Strasbourg, train from Strasbourg to Paris. They put us up in a real nice hotel near the Place de l'Opera, right in the middle of things. The difference between the front and Paris was more than night and day. I mean, Paris, music, lights. We hadn't seen electric lights for 6 months, except those little generator lights they had in the hospital. Women, song, went to the Folies Bergère, and a famous group was there, and I didn't realize it. I've read the book about them since then. Something girls, I don't know. But that was a nice 3 days. It took about a week. And when I got back, we were approaching Stuttgart. And we went into Stuttgart on the 23rd of April. And it was, again, almost like heaven. We were in a house that had running water, had a liquor cabinet full, but I didn't drink too much, but he had a lot of liqueurs, and I tasted a half dozen different ones. One of them tasted like licorice. I know about them now, but I didn't at that time. And on 25th of April, they officially called us off of line, so we were no longer combat. And it had been 185 days of combat up to that time. A day or two later, the lieutenant says, "Thompson, can you get me to Tailfingen?" I said, "Where's Tailfingen?" He said, "Well, it's down toward Switzerland." And I got a map, showed Tailfingen about halfway between Stuttgart and Lake Constance. I said, "We going there?" "Yep." "Can you get us there?" "Yep." We're going to leave at 6 tomorrow morning?" He says, "No, we're going to leave it as soon as it's dark here." We got on the road as soon as it got dark with our lights off, And the reason we were going at night without lights was we were going into French territory, and we weren't supposed to be down there. So we went on down. It took us a long time driving with just these little blackout lights. And you'd come to an intersection, and I'd have to try to figure out which way to go. I got us there. I mean, we got there. And we got there, and we found out we were supposed to go to pick up a German who didn't know anything about the man, but we were supposed to get this man, kidnap him, and take him back to Stuttgart, to keep him away from the French. And we went to the city hall, the Rathaus, they call it, and got the Burgermeister. And I think we drove up on the steps and hit the door with our Jeep, and so they'd come out, and of course we all had guns, and they didn't. And he came out, and he, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, we'll get him for you. And we, about this time, some of the guys had been walking around town a little bit, said, you know, there's a concentration camp here. I said, well, good gosh. And we went out, and they had a large slave labor concentration camp. Like this, it wasn't a killing camp. It was a labor camp. 1,000 there, about 1,000, about a third Russian, a third Ukrainian, and a third Polish. They weren't getting along too well. We were going to start slitting each other's throats, and they were hungry. Their friends came through and opened the door and taken off. The war, but I might say about what during the time after the war, but I'll just run through them.
Well, I'm back. I just want to get this in. This is the second of two tapes on Thursday, the 29th of September. And once again, it's Dr. Thompson. And the first name once more?
Raymond.
Dr. Raymond Thompson.
It's spelled R-A-M-O-N, but it's pronounced Raymond.
And we had just taken you to Stuttgart.
Yeah. And then we went from Stuttgart down to Taufing into the... but anyhow, we went out to this concentration camp, and they were all at each other's throats, more or less. And we didn't know how we were going to control this. Am I okay?
You're fine.
Okay. When two young men came up and said, may we help you in English? And I said, if you speak Russian, Ukrainian, and German, and English, and Polish, you could help. Be our liaison. And he said, oh, I speak all of those, plus he named a few more. And he was a boy named Rhonda Hendrick von dem Schlot, and he was in the concentration camp. And there was another boy named Nok Sabu Sonum, who was from India. So we said, you're signed on. We won't give you a gun or anything, but you can be our representative. And so they're very helpful in telling us what was happening in the camp. They also told us that there were some rumors of some Germans in the mountains around, so we were a little bit jumpy. But we were able to keep them from at each other's throats. And we went in and made friends with Russians and Ukrainians and Poles. And they were not, they weren't getting rations like the U.S. Army was, but they were getting good enough potato soup to keep them pretty healthy. And they were workers. I don't know where they had them working. And we'd run into we opened a half dozen smaller camps around Stuttgart and around Bad Wimpfen and Neckarsulm and all those little towns. So we found our man and went back, took him to Stuttgart by night again. And I read in the Reader's Digest a few years later about this daring group of American soldiers who had gone deep into, I don't know if they said French territory, but they'd gone deep into Germany and gotten the famous German hydrogen bomb expert. And that's who it was. What they had done was they had their heavy hydrogen up in Norway, where they're working on a hydrogen bomb. And as the war ended, as we took Norway back, they pulled them back, and they're scattered around in the area where I was. And so we picked up a half dozen in the Stuttgart area, and then this one from way down, stolen from the French. Then we went back to Stuttgart, and from then on it was moving around to different little towns. We stayed. The war ended on May the 5th. My battalion had lost about 55 to 60%.
How did you hear the news of the German surrender?
We were in Schorndorf, a little town east, which is almost I practically grew up there, it seems. I was there so many times, or so long. And I don't remember, just the guys started screaming and yelling, and we had found the day before, they had been digging a garbage pit, and they'd run into a box, large box, and we were kind of afraid we were going to find some bodies of some, but it turned out to be a rich man's liquor cache. So we had a company party that on the day. As I say, I've never been a heavy drinker, but I joined the celebration. It was good. It was a nice day. Then we started training for Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And I was teaching a course in map reading, and we were going to school. I took a course in German, two courses in German simultaneously. Fräulein Fuchs, and when she said Fuchs, all the guys, the uncouth ones, started giggling. She didn't know it means fox, actually, but and then an army guy was teaching another course, and I took a course in psychology, and I taught a course in map reading and things like that. We were just busy. We had the afternoons off, and we became friendly with the German girls, naturally, though it was forbidden early on. And several towns, Schorndorf one time, and north of Stuttgart there was Ludwigsburg, and I stayed at the estate, the villa of the Prince Zuvit, became good friends with the Prince and Princess. And he was the King William II of Württemberg. Prior to World War I, there were many kingdoms, and his grandfather was a king of Württemberg. Very gracious person, was in an International Red Cross during the war. And we went back to see them 10, 15 years later. I took my children to see my princess friend. Very nice people. Didn't have a whole lot of money, but they had a lot of land in downtown Ludwigsburg. They were multimillionaires, but they wouldn't sell, you know. Over there, you don't sell land. And I knew their little children when they were coming up. One of the children married the Countess of Paris, whoever that is. They try to stay with other royalty. And Bessigheim, we're in a little wine town one time where there was another slave labor camp. Back to Schorndorf. And then toward the end of the summer, well, then the VJ Day came, and we kind of started relaxing a little bit. And then the friend of mine, this best friend of mine, who had gone berserk at Remling, at Giesing, was in battalion headquarters working with the intelligence, with the S2 sergeant, who's the intelligence sergeant, Jim Moore. And Don came to me one day. By this, he was very naive about women when they're in camp, and well, this is kind of personal, I won't put it in, but he had a pretty good German girl, not like the girl he picked up at Fort Bragg. Gave her a ring and money and all that, you know, and then she ditched him for some other guy while we were over there. One day we were up in the common, and I saw him tromping across the road with the across the snow, across the field, knee-deep snow. I knew what was wrong. He looked too sad. it looked worse than his parents died. And then he met a nice German girl, and then I approved of her, and he eventually married her. And then eventually he killed himself at that time. We kept in contact. He came to see us in Decatur, and I went to see him in Indianapolis. But anyhow, he and Jim Moore, the S2 sergeant, came to me and said, the division is going constabulary. Instead of being a fighting outfit, you're going to be saluting and shaving and polishing your shoes every day and spit and polish outfit. And I said, I don't want that. We haven't saluted the war began since we got overseas. And knowing the sergeant major in the battalion made all the difference in the world. If we'd gone through regular channels, it would have taken us a month and we would have been constabulary. The sergeant major of the battalion wrote out our orders, carried them to regimental headquarters, which was in a different town, hand carried them to Stuttgart, which was a division headquarters, and we were out of there in 3 days. The other two guys got put in intelligence, military government intelligence, and I got put into a military government. We went up to Bad Homburg, up north of Frankfurt, where the military government headquarters was. And I just happened to be at the right spot at the right time. This guy came through and says, I need a corporal Heidelberg on a billeting party. Hey. so I volunteered, and we spent 5 weeks in Heidelberg with nothing to do. I know every inch of Heidelberg. I still have a friend from Heidelberg who's visited us here, and they're going to come back when the Olympics come, and he travels a lot. He's the managing editor of Sports Magazine over there, and a real nice couple. She had to marry a guy 2 years younger because all our age group was gone. I had one German. I had dozens of German girlfriends, but no boyfriend and no friend boy, because there just weren't any. I had 1 or 2 that I knew. We had some little boys that worked for us, 5 years younger than we were, 15 or so. But so I had a beautiful 5 weeks in Heidelberg with nothing to do. Had my own Jeep. I'd take trips back down to Stuttgart to see a girlfriend there, and I'd go over to Schorndorf to see if old friends there. And at Christmas, I was traveling all over the place. But then the captain said, Thompson, what do you know about supply? I said, oh, I'm an expert on supply. And he said, would you want to come with me to Stuttgart? Hometown, practically. We were up in Heidelberg at the time, which is, I wouldn't mind staying in Heidelberg, but it had too many soldiers. It was the Army headquarters, and we had a good time there, a lot of clubs. I met a lot of nice German civilians. Had one little girlfriend from Czechoslovakia who sang Sentimental Journey in English with a Czech accent. Met her at the Red Cross. And I met another girl at the University of Heidelberg, very nice girl, very high class. But anyhow, he said, go to Stuttgart, and I said, sure thing. Got down there, and we set up the S4 office, and I was the chief clerk. I was the chief NCO for military government, Württemberg-Baden supply, in charge of all alcohol, vehicles, county property accountability. I had these different sergeants, 5 or 6 sections, and they would each do one of the jobs. My main job was going through the mail each day and assigning each one of them a task. I didn't have to work too hard. And we had our own ski lodge and our own riding academy, our own baths and pools, and we lived in a village. And I stayed at that until the next spring. Came back by way of Bremerhaven.
So coming back spring, would that be the spring of of 46 or 7?
6.
46, spring of 46.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And at that point, of course, from what I understand of history, people were already starting to turn towards Russia and polarize into that Cold War formation.
I thought that we were very anti-Yalta. You know, we were fighting for land, and then they were giving it to Russia, and they stopped the troops, and kept them from going into beyond the Elbe. I think it was where they stopped the Americans, and the Germans would have welcomed us to take the whole country. You know, they were at a certain point when it was a choice between Russia and us, and they wanted us to come in.
What did you think of FDR at the time, 50 years ago?
Well, my father was a very strong Republican, so I kind of echoed his sentiments at the time. The more you read about him, the more respect you have for him. Yeah.
What did you think of Herbert Hoover?
I didn't really know him, but see, I was born in 25, and he was out in 28 or 9.
32?
32, okay, yeah, that's when FDR came. Okay. I guess maybe he went in the late 20s. From what I've read, I think he was much maligned, that he did not produce the, not recession, but the depression single-handedly. It was worldwide. That's how Hitler got in, was because of the worldwide...
I tend to agree with you, and I'm actually looking for a good biography of him.
I'm... my family did say things about him, so I had no preconceived ideas of what I read. Much maligned.
And how did you hear of Roosevelt's death? And did you know anything of Truman? Know anything about him at all? Did you feel anything?
I remember I guess we were in Germany at the time. What month was it, do you know?
Gosh, I think April of 45, but I might be wrong.
Pretty close to the end, because Truman then had the decision of the bomb, and Truman didn't even know there was a bomb when he came in. Yeah.
How did you get that news?
With the bomb? You know, I don't remember.
It's all right. These are the questions I ask everyone.
Yeah, we would, you know, rumors would come around, and then we'd get the Stars and Stripes a few days later. We didn't get a weekly paper. That's a daily paper. We got a weekly paper. Mm-hmm. We didn't have radio.
Was immediately at war's end, was there no press in Germany?
You mean interviewing us,
or well, I'm talking about newspaper. Were there German newspapers or media still unbombed?
Yeah, that's actually where the military government came in. We set up the. I was not in the governing part of I was in the supply part, but friends of mine were in the offices that dealt with the different facets of running the country. I remember the Stuttgart radio. Every morning I'd turn it on, and it said, "Hier Radio Stuttgart, ein Sender der amerikanischen Militärregierung." So they were letting the Germans know that who was talking. It says, "Here Radio Stuttgart, a sender of the American military government." So they knew who was talking.
What kind of a man was Patton?
I'm an admirer of him. He was a little bit brash, and I think he got a bad deal on that slapping that GI. But he took territory. He was good. I was not in his army. I was in the 7th Army, and we used to make jokes. You know, blood and guts, your blood and my guts. But because he did get a lot of soldiers killed, but he got a lot of territory.
Who was the commander of 7th Army?
Patch.
Thanks.
Uh-huh.
Sam Patch?
No, I don't remember.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Facts are easy to look up in an interview like this. Your memory is, I mean, It's the sound of someone's voice. But did you feel anything for Eisenhower as a commander?
Oh, wonderful. I mean, we adored him, revered him, worshipped him, yeah.
Can you give me a hint of where you must have gone in the 50 years since then? This I would like to condense, but I want to get that in there about how, if you attended med school, how you came to Athens.
Okay. Well, in high school, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. I picked out 3 different universities that had good med schools, Duke, Tulane, and Emory, and chose Emory because my high school professor was from Emory. So after the war, I came back to Emory. I'd already taken 1 semester